Okay, guys, one more piece of content for this week, and then we'll talk about the assignment. The content is about arrays. So for the assignment, you're going to be asked to collect some input from a user using a form, receive that input, validate it, make sure that it's correct using filter input, and then create an array of some kind and display that to the user. That's the basic form of the assignment. So you already know about arrays from Java mostly, but maybe a little bit from Python lists as well. So I'm going to show you the basics of PHP arrays. Then we're going to, then the next video I'll be introducing the assignment. Okay, so we're in section 5 of the module here, of the Module 1 guide. And you can see here some basic stuff. I'm just going to go over this stuff with you guys real quick. I have created, over in my htdocs folder, I've created array stuff. And inside there I have index.php. So that is just a copy of the template.php file renamed to index.php. And because I did it that way, when I go to local stuff 8080 array stuff, it immediately loads index.php. So any file called index, whether it's PHP or HTML, will get auto-loaded when you go to that address. It's the same as if you typed index.php here. It's the exact same thing. Okay, now let's take a look at my file over here. So this is going to be array examples. That's the title. When I reload over here, it should say array examples. Okay, and I'm just going to put a block of code down here. So here's an array. $a equals hello, true, 23, negative 3.4, I don't know, null. Okay, so an array can be created like this, just and assigned to a variable using square brackets. So an array is a list of values just like it is in any other programming language, and it can be indexed. So value 0 will be hello, value 1 will be true, and so on. And you notice that you don't normally do this, but I've deliberately, to show you what can be done, I've deliberately mixed the types. Okay, so if you wanted to see what's in this array, you could do something like this: echo p element 0, and then you could do $a 0. I believe that'll work. That might not work. Let's see if that works. Oh yes, it does. Okay, so you can embed the array element directly into there with its index. You could, if you wanted to print out all of the elements in the array, you could do a for loop for $i equals 0, $i less than. What's the length of the array? There's a built-in function called count. So here's your sort of boilerplate code for looping through the indexes of an array. Hopefully you recognize this from stuff that you have seen in Java. That was Alt-Shift-F I hit there to get that spacing. So this will go through all of the indexes of the array. And now I can do the same thing. Let's just copy this. Copy element $i, $a, $i. So I'm taking full advantage of the fact that I can embed things into strings here. So now it goes hello, 1, 23, negative 3.4. The null value doesn't get printed. So you just get nothing from that. I could also do a var dump of all these items. Okay, so that's one way to iterate over an array, is to use the indexes. If you're just gonna be $a as $e. If you're just going to be printing them out or visiting them, you can use the for each loop. So Java has an enhanced for loop that lets you do this. This is a lot like the Python for loop. It says for the array, pull out one element at a time and assign it to the variable $e for element. So $a is the array name as element, and then I can do this, echo, let's just do $element with a space. And what I'll do is I will echo a paragraph tag up here, and then I will echo out all the elements, and then I'll echo the closed paragraph tag here. It's really important. Make sure when you are writing your code that the output of your program is correctly formatted HTML code. Sometimes even though it looks right, it's not correctly formatted, which means it's not guaranteed to work the same way on every single browser. So because browsers are a little bit different, they tend to be more different in how they treat your output if you have not followed the rules of HTML. So make sure you follow all the rules. Make sure every tag that's opened gets closed, and so on. So here I've got a for loop that is echoing out all the elements, and here I am echoing them out using the indexing. Here's kind of a simpler way to do it. I'm just echoing them out using the for each loop. What's the difference? Well, you use the, let me just copy and paste this. There we go. Alt-Shift-F fixes my formatting. You use the indexes not usually when you're printing. When I'm printing, I would use a for each loop, but when you're changing things. So that's the main reason you would use an index, because I can assign to it and it will change the array. If I assign to element, it only changes element. It doesn't change the array. So here I'm going to replace all the elements of the array with their indexes. So now this will print out 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe. There you go. So the first time through I printed them. Second time through I replaced everything. Third time through I created, sorry, I printed them out again. Printed them out again. Now in your, I think that's really all we need to know. In your assignment, eventually you're going to be creating an array from user input and then echoing that out to the screen in some way or another. So let's say the user wanted to roll a bunch of dice. I might get a num dice parameter. I'll go filter, input, get, num dice, or let's just call it n to make it easier to type. And this is a filter validate int, because this is an integer. And then I'll just check it, make sure that it is not equal to false and not equal to null. So notice the before I was using the triple equals. Here I'm using the negated part of that. So as long as it's not exactly equal to false, meaning it's not the same type and value as false, and it's also not exactly equal to null, so this means it's a correctly formatted a number, and this means that we received a number. So as long as I didn't get either of those return values back from filter input, I could do something like this. I can create an array. So let's go $dice equals the empty array. And then I'm going to start adding things into the array. I'm going to add dice into the array. So most dice have 6 sides. So I'm going to go for $I equals 0, $I less than the number that they wanted, $num dice, $I plus plus. Okay. And now here I'm going to use a really handy little function. So arrays in PHP, they're kind of like arrays, but they can grow and shrink, just like arrays and lists in Python can. But it's done through global functions. So I'm going to go array push. What that does is it adds an item. So I give it, sorry. So the first parameter is the array, and then I add some variables on the end. So the dice array, and then I'll go, give me a random number between 1 and 6. So what this does is takes the dice array and sticks onto the end a new element. In this case, you can put anything you want here, any expression, but I'm just going to put a random number between 1 and 6. Like that. And so when I'm done this, I will have an array of dice, and then the next thing to do will be to print them out. So for $dice as $die, which is the singular of dice. So that's going to pull out, should be for each, sorry. Going to pull them all out. I can do echo, I don't know, something like, div class equals die, dice, $die div. So then I could have some CSS rules that make the class of dice look like a nice die, and it's echoing it out. So reload here. It's not going to do anything. I need to put a parameter on here. The parameter was called n. So if I say n equals 10, it's printing out the divs. It's rolled 10 dice for me, and it's printing them out. It rolled them, stored them in an array, which I could then process later, and I would probably put some nice CSS on here to make it look nice. Okay, so you need the count function, you need the array push function, you need to understand that you can use the square brackets to create an array either with stuff in it or an empty array. You can use array push then to grow the array, and you can iterate using either a for loop with an index, which is usually $i, or you can iterate using the for each loop like this. So this is all in the guide. There's the for loop, there's the for each loop, there's count and array push. By the way, this is kind of an aside, but strings are basically arrays of characters. So you can assign to them, you can check. So this little example here, server-side scripting is fun. We'll take $s and change all the lowercase s's to uppercase s's. And you, instead of using count, you use strlen as the function. And there's some more examples online. So in the module 1 code, there is some arrays code here for arrays and strings that show you some of that stuff, and I'll let you look at that on your own. What I think you should do before you move on to the assignment is you should at least take a look at and try out one of these exercises. I would do number 1 here. The idea is you create a PHP app with 3 arrays, one for people, one for rooms, and one for weapons, and then you randomly pick from that array. Each array should have at least 5 elements. Then you use random pick from 0 to 4 if you've got 5 elements to print out a sentence that has, each time it has a different person, place, and weapon. This is if you've never played the game Clue before, this is inspired by the game Clue, where you try to figure out who murdered, I think it's Mr. Body is his name. Mr. Body's been murdered, and you have to figure out who it was, where they did it, and what weapon they used. So that's the inspiration here. Or you could have a dice rolling app. So similar to what I just showed you, I've done part of the work for you. This one also allows you to set the number of sides on each die. You should create an array of dice rolls and then print them out. If you can do this one in particular, then you're well on your way to being able to do what we're asking you to do in the assignment. You're going to notice, by the way, a lot of optional stuff. See the whole next section, optional extra. You can ignore section 6 if you want. It's about functions and object-oriented programming. When we originally created this course and ran it, we included a bunch of object-oriented stuff, but it was just a bit too much. Given that you've just kind of seen object-oriented in Java, maybe it hasn't really sunk in yet. It was a bit much to assume that you could do object-oriented design. But if you're feeling comfortable with object-oriented programming, you might want to check out these sections and maybe even think about using them in the assignment. Because it is a cool thing to do to be able to create an array of objects. So you can create a class, you can create instances of that class, store it in an array, and that would be better for the dice roll or better for the assignments and so on. But this is all optional. And then at the very end, you'll see there's a quick language reference. Under normal conditions, this would be a reference that you would get on the test. Your tests are going to be open book anyway, but it's good to know that this is here. It's a quick reference for everything that we showed you. Most of what I would ask you to do on a test should be available here in the quick reference. Okay, so over in the exercises as well, there are optional exercises which use, I think use classes and objects. So if you go on and do that, you could get some practice there. Okay. So that's it for this week. Make sure you're well practiced in all this stuff before you come to the live class. And I'll see you. I will have a quick introduction to the assignment video. And I will also have another video that shows you how to upload stuff to CS Unix in case you've forgotten. But you can maybe leave that one until you need to actually do the upload. Okay, that's it.